Meanwhile, the reinsurance industry has failed to embrace man's drive for progress. The reinsurance industry today would be as familiar to practitioners from the 1800s as it is to modern underwriters. An underwriter or broker from 1800 would settle nicely into today's business. That is, until now. For the reinsurance industry, pivot point changes everything. Soon it will be understood that the period before pivot point was as dark as the caveman period was before the abacus. Come and see for yourself if you don't. After a demonstration, you will understand what is possible.
Global warming. Some say irreversible consequences are 30 years away. 30 years? That won't affect me.
Together, New Yorkers can fight global warming, right now, before it's too late.
QBE Insurance Giant Limited has agreed to buy the Australian and New Zealand operations of US mortgage insurers PMI for a total of $901 million. The PMI Australia acquisition is subject to regulatory approvals, and PMI Asia acquisition is subject to definitive agreements and regulatory approvals. Frank O'Halloran, QBE's Chief Executive Officer, said the purchase of PMI in Australia and Asia is in line with QBE's strategy of diversification. The acquisitions have been structured to allow us to meet or exceed our minimum profit requirements even in the event of extremely adverse economic conditions over the next 3 years. The acquisitions will be EPS accretive in 1 year. PMI Australia writes around 40% of the residential mortgage insurance market in Australia, with an expected 2008 gross written premium of around 200 million Australian dollars, including around $5 million through its New Zealand branch. PMI Asia has gross written premium of around 12 million Australian dollars in Hong Kong. German reinsurance giant Munich Re could face additional write-downs in the second half of the year. A spokesman says that there were unrealized losses of almost 2.7 billion euros on securities at the end of June, and that it is not certain how much of this sum will need to be written off. Further write-downs are already said to have taken into account in the group's revised 2008 forecast. Munich Re now says merely that its post-tax profit for the year will be well over 2 billion euros, compared with its previous target of up to 3.4 billion euros. Last year, the group achieved a record profit of 3.9 billion euros. German reinsurer Hannover Re announced on the 19th of June 2008 that it had completed its first transaction as part of its extended insurance-linked securities business. The company transferred property catastrophe risks of a number of US cedents to the capital markets in several tranches. Unlike the company's previous securitizations, the move is not intended to secure Hannover Re's own business, but to allow the direct transfer of clients' business to the capital market. According to Hannover Re CEO Willem Zeller, through the new type of pooling and transfer function, ceding companies will be able to access the capital market, no matter of the type of risk. The transferred portfolio consists of US catastrophe business, mainly hurricane risks in Florida. Leading global reinsurance and risk intermediary Benfield brokered the relevant contracts and devised the portfolio. A special purpose entity named Globe Re, capitalized at $133 million, was established in Bermuda to carry out the transaction. Globe Re is funded via a share issue in the amount of $33 million and a further $100 million in bonds with a maturity term of 1 year. Benfield invested $20.5 million in the new company, while Hannover Re participated with $5 million. The bonds, split into 3 tranches bearing respectively BBB-, BB and B Standard & Poor's ratings, were placed with institutional investors primarily in North America. The investors receive an attractive coupon dealing on the risk category. Lawyers say they aren't surprised the U.S. Supreme Court kicked the question of interest payments in the Exxon Valdez case back to the appellate level. Attorneys for the plaintiffs in the sprawling damages litigation said Wednesday that the High Court often leaves such matters to the lower courts, and they are prepared to move on to the 9th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in San Francisco. At issue is the question of whether ExxonMobil should pay interest on the $507 million punitive damages award in the 1989 oil spill. The Supreme Court Tuesday declined the question and referred it back to the 9th Circuit.